Okay, so we're going to start with you've heard of Omicron. You heard of the latest COVID strand, variant. Well, the other strains like the Alpha, Beta, Delta, all those are gone. Those are in the past. Now we have the Omicron, okay? And supposedly everybody's guarding against them for the winter, okay, in the northern hemisphere especially. And here what you find is it says vaccines against Omicron, the bottom line. This comes from the top people in the United States, right? The Omicron variant compromises the effects of two-dose mRNA vaccine-induced antibodies and reduces overall vaccine protection, but considerable protection against severe disease is maintained. In other words, the vaccine they gave you, if you got the vaccine, allegedly covers you even for the Omicron, right? But they suggest that you get a third doses, the booster. Okay, so they say our boosted vaccine regimens work against Omicron. No need for a variant-specific booster at this time. Not yet. They haven't invented the one that attacks the Omicron, right? And and here you have one situation that I looked up this week, and it's all the enemies of the United States. What do they have to say about Omicron? Okay, and these are the main enemies, right? So what do they say? Well, here they are individually. Okay, here we have especially Iran, Russia, North Korea, and Cuba, right? And this is the Russians. Let me get this one out of here. Here we have the Russians, and they say they have detected Omicron variant in 16 people who came from South Africa. Okay, and the Moscow Times, right, says that the Sputnik 5 robust against Omicron. It claims that the Sputnik 5 is robust against the Omicron. And so they say, again, no need to take a booster of a new kind of vaccine because the one they have already takes care of that problem, right? The Omicron variant. And here you have the Cubans, and they have a similar situation. They found first case a few days ago, and then more recently, a few days later, in fact, a couple days ago, they detected 4 more cases of the Omicron in Cuba, right? And says that Cuba aspires to have a vaccine ready against the Omicron variant. So we got a little bit of a contradiction. We have one country, a couple countries, Russia and the United States, they say, no need to invent a new vaccine. The old vaccine works against Omicron. And here the Cubans are trying to develop a new vaccine, or a vaccine, right, that attacks the Omicron variant. Isn't that a little suspicious? Haven't the Cubans found out that, the old vaccine works against the Omicron? Are they the only ones who don't know about it? And here you have Iran, another country that you could say is an enemy of the United States. Says Iran minister says new coronavirus strain Omicron could spread. Iran health minister has warned about the possibility, okay, not the certainty, but the possibility of the new coronavirus variant Omicron spreading in the country, but did not announce any travel bans. Okay, so they're not raising any flags yet. They're just saying, well, there's this new variant, and we're aware of it. We're on the lookout, but we're not going to stop the country. Okay. And it says looms, but Iran has no means of detecting it. Well, I guess if the old vaccine works on Omicron, why do you need to even detect it, right? I mean, you would think that if you get like I did, the 2 shots, right? Hopefully I'm protected against the Omicron as well, because they say that the vaccine they gave me works against the Omicron variant as well. Okay, so I don't know. We're looking at seems like some contradictions out there. That's what it seems like to me. Okay. Okay, and what about North Korea? Well, here we have them, and they say, they warn against the Omicron variant, right? But they haven't found any cases yet in North Korea, and here they're raising flags all over the place. Here in Germany, at least, it's unbelievable. They've already put all these rules that you need to have a third shot, and that if you don't have the 2 shots, they're going to require a COVID test, like a daily one, like if you're stopped on the street by the Gestapo, and so here's a big deal. And apparently in another country, they had, 1 or 2 cases, 16 cases? Are we going to stop the world because we had 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 cases? And so, the question is whether this is real or not anymore. For me, it's starting to become like an excuse because the politicians can't fix the economy. They said, well, we can't fix it because of the Omicron. And the reason we had to shut down all the hotels, all the restaurants, all the barber shops, all the nightclubs is because this bug is out there. And it turns out, it kills maybe, or it hasn't killed anyone apparently yet. But there's been like a few cases, a handful of cases, maybe 20, something like that. So the question is, should we stop the world because there's this bug out there? And the reason I'm asking that also is because there's another issue, and that's that um, it's winter season, and lots of people go out there and get their flu shots. Remember the flu? This was a bug that we paid attention to for so many years, and now nobody even mentions the flu. Isn't anybody getting sick because of the regular colds or flus? This is the season, And so, it's like we forgot about the flu, or maybe we're mistaking this COVID thing for the flu and vice versa. I mean, the question is, what happened to the flu? Has the COVID displaced the flu? Is that what's happened? One bug replaced the other? Like, the killer bees replacing the bumblebee or something like that? I don't know. It does make you stop and think what's going on, right? So I can't blame the people who are conspiracists, as they're known. I sympathize with them here, because it's not very clear what's going on, okay? At least to me. Okay, so here we go with this fellow. He says, we were talking about COVID, and he said that COVID is a fake, just like HIV/AIDS was a fake. And he says, well, you had hardcore drugs and malnutrition. Those were confused, or those created the situation where people got sick. And I guess he's saying that somehow um, had something to do with the fact that HIV/AIDS spread, right? Okay. He said also that there's a drug that was applied to, or that people got to see if they could be cured of AIDS, and I guess it just made them worse or killed them or whatever. Yeah, these are theories, and again, different people have different theories out there about all these diseases, not only COVID, but AIDS and so on, these modern day diseases. In the case of AIDS, as far as I'm concerned, the HIV, they got it from the jungle somewhere. I guess someone slept with a gorilla or something out there and brought it into civilization. The question now comes with this other bug, the COVID. Where did that one come from? I mean, allegedly it started in China. It started in a city, right? So we're not talking about someone going into the jungle, an unexplored area, and somehow came in contact with a new disease. Here we're talking about a city, Wuhan, right? And that bug was just all of a sudden just popped into existence out of nowhere. It's kind of weird. You would think that if we come across a disease, it would be something that no one has encountered before because it's isolated from humans, from the majority, from the human population. But people have been living in Wuhan for a long time now, and we just caught it now. It just popped into existence out of nowhere. Things that make you stop and think, what's going on? Again, we got to try to reason this out because the information that's out there is a little confusing and contradictory. Okay, and so it's up to you to imagine what's really going on. Okay, and we have another issue. If I can get it there. We talked about brain sizes and intelligence, if there's a correlation. And there was an article that says rocket scientists and brain surgeons are not necessarily smarter than the rest of us, study finds. Okay, so they did a test on several people, several thousands of people of Britons, right? They compared them against 329 aerospace engineers, 72 neurosurgeons. And they said there's no significant difference in the general population and these guys as far as how smart they are. The conclusion said there was no significant difference in how aerospace engineers scored versus the general UK population. Neurosurgeons only showed faster problem solving and slower memory recall. So we always talk about the rocket scientists. Maybe not. maybe these guys are no different than you. Okay, again, opinion maybe in the end, but here there's a study, right, that says there is no difference in if we're going to talk about intelligence, like if that test measures intelligence, which is a separate issue, well, then there is no significant difference in the intelligence or smartness of, these so-called rocket scientists, neurosurgeons, and the average population. Okay? In other words, those rocket scientists, they're human. Okay, so here we have another issue with brain and intelligence. Follow says, dissect the topic on brains and intelligence if you can. Intelligence is such an abstraction that maybe humanity never gets to understand how it physically works on a micro level within its time on Earth before extinction. Uh-huh. And another fellow brings up a parallel issue, okay? And let's just go through it so that you see how it's related to this. Okay, he says, by what happens when we die, I am in fact referring to what happens when you or I die personally. I thought originally his question had to do with the extinction of man and not with personal death. Okay, well, nothing happens. That's it. That's what I answer. He says, sounds like an irrational answer. You're just conjuring an image of a black background. I believe that one can only be conscious. Therefore, when we die, we either relive life from the beginning. Okay, I don't know about that, without memory, or are conscious as something else. Okay, so what, we come back from the dead, or there's a soul that survives? Is that what we're saying here? Of course, I have trouble defining what consciousness is. I would say that it is just sensing. Okay, so we have these questions. What are we talking about? Are we talking about mind, spirit, soul, all these words that we use to define consciousness or thinking or whatever you want to call it? We've got all these variants of what thinking is. And people have for hundreds of years believed that there's this thing called spirit, soul, mind, consciousness that somehow is separate from the body. It's been discussed ad nauseum throughout the ages. Is there such a thing? Is there such a standalone object thing known as consciousness? And all I can give you is my humble version, and that's that consciousness is a verb. There's no such thing as consciousness. And people who confuse consciousness for this spirit, this ghost that leaves the body, some people say that you weigh more with a ghost in than when the ghost leaves you. They say now you weigh less. Even assuming that were the case, are we saying that that ghost not only has shape, but has weight, mass? What's it made out of? Atoms? I mean, these people are the Dark Ages. That's what it is. Okay, so let's find out. Let's go into this thingy we call mind, thought, spirit, whatever word you want to put in there. Okay, and I start with this. This is what you're seeing here is areas of the brain. Okay, and in this case, it's got to do with love, which is one of the ones that has been studied. And these are neurons, and these are different parts of the brain that they've found are activated when a person has this thingy we call love, okay, this attraction. And there are different kinds of love. There's maternal love, there's sexual love, etc. But this just to show you how the brain works. In other words, these things apparently are turning on, and they were able to map the brain to some degree and say, look, these are the regions of the brain that turn on and off when someone experiences this thingy we call love. Okay, and here's what happens with these neurons. Let me show you this, especially the synapse. Okay, and it's you have all these neurons, they're cells essentially, and there are gaps between them that we can't see anything in there. And the question, and they still communicate through that gap, through that separation there. And, assuming it's some electrical signal or maybe magnetic signal, of course, we would not see it especially if it's magnetic, right? There would be nothing there for us to see. The question is whether, are we going to simulate this or mimic it, with the proposal by quantum mechanics, which are little electrons that flow across that gap, or you could say it's magnetism, whatever they want to put in there. Or are we going to simulate it with the rope model where you have something physical that you can't see or touch? Okay, so the question is, what's in that region, okay, between the neurons? And I think this gives us an idea of how the brain works. You know, when they pinch your toe with a little needle, okay, you feel it immediately. So where do you feel it? And you say, well, I felt it in my toe because that's where they pinched me. But see, when you see or when you find a quadriplegic person who can't, has his neck, anything below the neck is paralyzed, he can't feel anything there, can't move anything, you can pinch his toe and he doesn't feel it. And you say, well, I thought it was locally. I thought you felt it there, but here you pinch this guy, he doesn't feel it. Not only he cannot move anything, but he cannot feel it. Meaning that what has been severed is the connection between that little area of his toe and his brain. Okay, so something there was cut off, usually something in the back of the neck or depending on the injury, right? And so, he doesn't feel it. And he doesn't feel it because his head somehow is disconnected internally from that region of the toe. Okay, and so this gives us an idea that, we're all connected all the way from the head to the toe. If you cut off something which is internal, that connects those things, physical connection, well, then now you can't feel the toe. And yet all those nerves are connected. When you do feel the pinch, all those are connected by neurons that are separated from each other by these synapses. And so the question is there a disconnect between two cells, two neurons, or are they connected physically, but we can't see what connects them? Okay. Is there maybe magnetism flowing in that region? Is it some kind of chemical, or is it electricity, right? And that's gives us an idea of maybe how the brain works. I'm saying a lot of this is electromagnetic, and when we look at electromagnetic, we're going to look at what we're seeing today, and that's that we're looking at torsion, in situ torsion. Like when a rope turns in situ, right? Nothing's really moving in the opposite directions here of the rope. No, it's twirling in place, and the ends, by twirling the end, that's causing already a thump, some kind of influence over the atom that's at the other end. And when you look at it from that point of view, nothing needs to travel at the speed of light from your toe to your head. There is no, little electron ball that goes from your toe to your head. It's a torsion that's in situ. And the only reason, a quadriplegic can't feel it is because that physical connection is severed. And you can also look at it as a series, assuming we're talking about electricity. Again, it's merged shells or membranes that twirl in place. And there's a connection all the way from your toe all the way to your head. And if you cut that physical connection, if now they're separated, right, atom from atom or molecule from molecule, cell from cell, right, now you get a gap there. Now there is no continuity. Okay, so keep that in mind. That's what I think electricity is. We're going to look at that a little bit today. Okay, we're going to look at now the, governments. Paul says, anyone who thinks that elites aren't in control should try and take control of any of the world's natural resources and see what happens, or try to start your own utility company, or claim ownership for air rights around some airports, build your own dam, and we are now, have always been, forever will be slaves to the elite. Okay, thinking otherwise is a clear sign of one's delusion. Okay, another fellow says almost the opposite. He says, not that he's wrong, but he says we should have authoritarianism. He says if the Soviet Union had won the Cold War, we might not have been in an harboring extinction crisis now. The state would have controlled the means of production. Food and import machines would have been produced for the people, and shitty technology would have been made them do it themselves. What I mean is that the economy would not progressively become based on superfluous things such as distraction, knowledge, and services. And people could fall back on the state when the economy collapses. An authoritarian state might also give people great purposes. Perhaps we could far out from the earth and colonize the solar system. Yeah, I don't think so. At least I can only give you my 5 cents worth on that. I'm saying, first of all, let's make sure we cannot conquer the solar system, okay? We're never going to colonize it, terraform it, or anything like that, like Carl Sagan suggested once. It's never going to happen. We might, the best we can probably achieve, which I doubt anyways, but it could happen, because I think we have the technology to do so, is, we could visit Mars. We could send a group of uh, astronauts all the way to Mars, and I think we have the technology to, or close to it, to achieve that goal. But even, like colonizing Mars, like putting something up there and saying, okay, we're gonna live there, no, never gonna happen. Obviously not. Same for the moon. We might visit the moon, but are we gonna put some stations on the moon and live on the moon? Absolutely not. Never gonna happen. And one of the things that you have to think about is that even if we were to achieve that, even if we were to put a colony on the moon or on Mars, and like the guy in the movie, plant potatoes out there, um, so what? What have we achieved? In other words, are we going to expand throughout the solar system? And let's even concede that, okay? So we colonize everything up to Pluto that is inhabitable, right? Then what? Where do we go from there? Are we going to make it to the nearest star, 4.3 million light years away? I'm sorry, 4.3 light years away. You're talking about a long distance there. And the question is, are we ever going to go to the nearest star? And the answer is obviously not. Okay, it's never going to happen. So even if we were to colonize the entire solar system, so what? The Earth is probably the biggest planet that is inhabitable. In fact, I think it is. And Venus is close by there. But even if we terraform those, are we going to populate, in other words, double our population by going to these other stones? Instead of 8 billion or 9 billion people, we're going to be 18 billion because we're spread out throughout the solar system, 18 billion or more, right? No, it's never going to happen. Partly because, we've already exhausted our genetic diversity here on Earth. That's one issue. The other one is that, we stop having children. So there's no incentive, no pressure to leave the Earth. I mean, if we were overflowing and people were falling off the Earth because the Earth is so populated, yeah. But, we're so far away. The Earth is still an empty land. There's a lot of places we could inhabit right now. In Russia's an empty country. Argentina, empty country. All these are empty countries. And people don't understand that. They say, oh, the world is overpopulated. No. At least as far as space is concerned, we got a lot of space out there. I don't know if we have enough resources for people. That's a separate issue. I'm saying that we have space. Space is not a scarce resource as of today. Okay, we could probably fit 1 trillion people on the Earth. I'm talking only about space, not talking about resources. Okay, space-wise, we can fit a lot more people than we have today. Okay, so space we have, but we're not filling that space because we don't have children. We're not having children anymore. Okay, women stopped having children, and so that's going to come to a stop. And so, do we need to have? Is there any pressure for us to go to Mars or to Venus or whatever? Absolutely not. We're not going to go out there. Right now, all those are projects, lab projects to say, hey, it'd be nice to see if we can develop the technology and the know-how how to get there. Yeah, that's great. Don't tell me we're going to live there. Absolutely not. You got to get that off your head. See, I used to believe all that stuff once myself. I thought, we were going to go out into space, into other planets, conquer not only the solar system, but other star systems, and move on to the galaxy. No way it's going to ever happen. Okay, that's my 5 cents worth on that. Okay, here we go. First it says, the reason free market has worked so well is because its foundation is self-interest. Now, that's a little more rational than the other two fellows, okay? And economy is literally all of us, rich and poor, taking care of our self-interest. Yeah, and that's the Adam Smith philosophy, everybody taking care of themselves moves progress forward. That's the way it all works. So, people have different ideas about what government should be. Some people believe, like this other fellow, that it should be authoritarian somehow, that you need to put some kind of order, and it's got to come from above, because if you let the masses rule or whatever, it's not going to happen. You got to impose order on the people below, but impose the laws, so to speak. Other people say, oh, I'm being crushed by these laws. I don't want them anymore. Who are you to tell me what to do? And so we have all these differences of opinions. But the important one, at least as related to economics, is, self-interest. Absolutely. Okay. Fella says, your conception of human evolution as devolution reminds me much of the creationist view of devolution. Do you align yourself with the creationist view of evolution? Accuses me of being a creationist. I can't believe this. What about religious views on the end of the world, namely the events of Revelation? No, my theory has absolutely nothing to do with the Bible. I mean, I didn't even get the idea from the Bible at all. I got it, in fact, from relativity. Because you have all these mathematicians, and they're saying we're all going to go into outer space. We're going to conquer the solar system, the stars, the galaxy, and maybe other galaxies. That's the idea, because they just imagine this thing evolving forward forever and ever, and they say, oh, so many things we're going to invent in the future. And invention is done with. There are no more inventions. We've invented everything we needed to invent of any relevance. They changed the color of the car. Well, you can say that's an invention. Yeah. Like one invention out there that came out a couple of years ago was beer. Beer that, was it something about the beer, I can't remember now, but it was a special type of beer. Yeah, beer is beer is beer, and you can change something about that beer. And they call it an invention, No, because the guy who drinks beer is going to drink that beer or another beer. It doesn't matter. And the same if you change a blue car for a red car. Is that an invention? Well, yeah, I guess you could say that cosmetic change, you can patent it, copyright it or whatever. Yeah, right now we only make cosmetic changes out there. Manufacturing is dead. Manufacturing is dying before our very eyes. Okay, it's becoming a smaller percentage of GDP and of labor. We're replacing humans with machines to do a lot of that work, and all humans are going into services. So, there's going to be no more inventions. So if you don't hold your breath, this notion that some people have out there that there's going to be this technological singularity where things take off exponentially because suddenly you have these robots doing the inventions for us, and they're going to come up with so many things we cannot even imagine. And it's like putting it off, like saying, I can't tell you what, because, I'm not one of those robots that's going to be inventing all this stuff. And so they can just imagine that this is going to take off. And no, manufacturing is on its way down, not on its way up. There's going to be no technological singularity. We're at the end of the line. And not only are we not producing people, children, babies, but we're not producing technology either, manufacturing. That's dead as well. So, again, my 5 cents worth on that. Says, what you're arguing for is, oddly enough, a catastrophe which is not as likely to occur as a broad systemic shift. I propose instead that civilization will slowly wither on the vine. Okay, slowly, he says. It's going to be a slow, gradual process, okay, as it adjusts to the decline of fossil fuel resources and deals with crushing birth rates compounded by a gigantic aging population and dysgenic incentive structure. Humanity may or may not go extinct because in this gradual process, there will be some organized societies that will attempt to adapt. So he's saying that we can overcome extinction because it's a slow process. It gives us time to think and to fix the problem, whatever the problem is, and someone will survive and restart the race all over again. That's more or less what he's saying here, okay? Of course, extinction is ultimately about food. Okay, how that came in there, I have no idea, because he wasn't talking about food so far. So if there's still food out there, it doesn't really matter whether civilization collapses or not. There will be those who continue. So he's running around in circles. He's saying, yeah, it's about food extinction, but we don't have to worry because there's always going to be some food out there. And as long as there's some food out there, someone will survive and they'll restart the race. This is a notion. This is what he's thinking here. I think that's what will happen to man, a smaller, dinkier civilization that will never rise back to its former glory. I guess what he's saying is we're going to be 10 people on the earth, and we're going to have this food, and it's just not going to rise to the 8 billion people we have today. Is that what we're saying here? What can I say? Let's go with another one, because this fellow says, and this is going to put it in the right context, okay? How long will it take for mankind to fall? Are we talking about years or decades? Will mankind actually go extinct? And so my answer is mankind will go extinct. Mankind has no possibility whatsoever of overcoming extinction. Okay, that's what I'm going to argue. Okay, I'm saying we have no way of fixing this problem, no matter what we do. No matter how much intelligence we have, no, it doesn't matter how much technology we have, it doesn't matter that we can foresee events and react to them. None of that has any bearing on the cause of extinction. And that's why I constantly remind people that they should do Extinction 101 before they do Extinction 102. Everybody's an expert on 102, which is human extinction, and I have yet to find experts on extinction, specifically mass extinction. How did the dinosaurs die? If you cannot tell me that, don't talk to me about humans. You know nothing about extinction and you want to talk about human extinction. Please tell me how the animals in the past died. And that's what science is about. That's what the extinction of man is about. It's not about the future. It's about the past. It has to do with the mechanism of extinction. How did the animals in the past die? How did they become extinct? Once we figure that out, we have to apply that mechanism to man and see if he can overcome it. And yeah, the only one that we cannot overcome is food. Okay? We cannot overcome food because our whole economy is a inverted pyramid scheme. We're always expecting, to be more people in the future so that we sell more products and that keeps our economy going. But that was good primarily for the manufacturing age, which died some 50 years ago now. And it's still applicable to the service age. If you have more people out there, you can provide them with more services. But services is a little easier to provide, like a song, you can provide to millions, and it's just one song, one singer. That's different in manufacturing. If you need to provide 1 million television sets, you need to produce 1 million television sets for 1 million people. So services, like, intangibles, those are a lot easier to spread around, okay, than manufacturing. Manufacturing, goods, tangible goods, you require one per person, whereas the other one, you can have one thingy, whatever it is, one concept, and you can spread it out to 8 billion people without any problem. A song or whatever it is, specification, how to do something, knowledge, all that stuff, you can spread very easily. You don't have to produce it physically. That's the difference. Anyways, if I ask, how soon are we, or how close are we to extinction? And I've got this graph there that more or less puts it in the right perspective. And again, I want to emphasize that this gives me an idea of when it's going to happen. Okay, and for 200,000 years, we were hunter-gatherers, hunters primarily, I'd say. Maybe 10,000 years we were farmers. Maybe 200, 300 years we were into industry. We created the industrial revolutions, maybe in the late 18th century, somewhere around there. And about 50 years ago now, we went into services. And perhaps the last 10 years or so, we went into new kinds of services. We went into internet services, okay? And so we're not doing any hands-on services like I discussed the other day, where we have restaurants and hotels that require maids, and restaurants require cooks and busboys and servers and so on. And all those jobs are now being killed, and what are we replacing them with? Well, people are moving into internet. They're doing a lot of internet stuff, which is, just some concept out there, again, that you can spread to millions through the internet. Some hit it big and they say, oh, I'm making a lot of money with this. Great. One guy does it. One guy does hit the jackpot. But the majority of people, they're going to get crumbs out there, and a lot of people just can't enter that business. They're just going to be customers, not providers. And so we're moving people out of the hands-on services now into these abstract services, which are, the internet services. And other people are unemployed. They receive money from the government. Others, maybe sell drugs on the streets or live with their parents. You got all sorts of people out there. And so the question is, we're abandoning now the jobs that this COVID thing is pushing people out of the hands-on jobs, right? And going into these abstract internet jobs, services, programming and so on. That's big still today. And can we live on entertainment alone, on leisure? So that's food for thought for you. Can man live on leisure alone? Someone might even say yes out there. Okay, I'm going to say no. Okay, final issue says, did you go to a rational doctor for your problems, or did you go to a mainstream doctor who relies on past experiments, measurements, accurate predictions, and all the mainstream science you consider nonsense? Oh my God, poor fellow. You know, he the problem here is he doesn't understand the difference between science and technology. All that he mentioned here has to do with technology. When you go to a doctor and he cures you, he's not doing science. Okay, it's not called science. Okay, that's mathematics. Okay, they call it science. When you do an experiment and when you cure someone of something because you gave him a drug, you gave him a massage, you maybe fix his leg somehow. Oh, that's technology. That's not science. Science has nothing to do with someone touching you or giving you a drug or anything like that. Science is that doctor who's in one corner, maybe at his office, his desk, and he says, now let's see, what causes cancer? That's the scientist. Okay. Now the guy that cures you of cancer, he's not a scientist. Okay. That's mathematics notion of science. So yeah, so this fellow doesn't understand the difference between science and technology, and this technology thingy is what the mathematicians consider science. In fact, the Nobel Prize is given not only to people who come up with theories, and in fact, most of them are not given to people who come up with theories. A lot of them are given to people who invent something. Marconi, for example, he got it for supposedly inventing the telegraph, right? Or having to do with the invention of the telegraph. What's that got to do with science? I mean, is this a medal that they give for science or for technology? What are they giving that medal for? And so it's a mixture. Why? Because the mathematicians consider lab experiments, hands-on experiments, and all these inventions. They consider it as part of science. Okay? No, it's not. We separate science from technology. Science is explanations. You have to explain something. And when I went to the doctor, we had a little bit of both. We had a little bit of science, a little bit of technology. But this fellow mentions has to do with technology. The part that dealt with science is when the doctor gave me her opinion, her theory of what could be wrong. So it could be this, could be that. And these are theories that they don't know for sure. It could be this or it could be that, right? So again, it's what you believe in. They might say, well, I think you have this, and you should take this medicine. Okay, and maybe you take it with a grain of salt. You might say, well, when you go home, you say, well, should I do that? Should I really take that remedy, that drug? And you might decide not to because you're not confident that your doctor really hit it on the nose. Okay, doctor says, I know why you have a headache. You have it because you've been drinking too much beer. Take an aspirin. And maybe you think you have a headache because someone hit you over the head, and then all you need is a pack of ice. so so we have a differences of technology to address the problem, which has nothing to do with science, which was the theory of why you have some kind of ailment. Okay, so yeah, we have to distinguish science from technology.